Good evening, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Spilling Ink Live, the talk show that takes you behind the scenes in the publishing world to meet with authors and designers and pretty much anyone in the publishing industry. Tonight we have our lovely, sometimes misbehaving co-host, Katie. What is it? It's Salidas,
Oh,
right?
don't even
Salidas?
go there. That's what got me in trouble last time.
Katie Salidas, how are you doing tonight, Katie?
I am fabulous. How about you, Jason?
I am doing pretty well. And then we also have Tim Chizmar, right?
Yeah, that's me. Hello. Yay.
Yes, nailed it. And you know, I really like that big poster in the background. What does that say though? Because your head's kind of cutting off. Horror Writers Association. Do you have something to do with the Horror Writers Association?
No. Yes, okay. Yes. I'm the co-chair of the Las Vegas chapter of the Horror Writers Association. Yep.
Awesome. Very cool. Very cool. Well, so Tim, tell us a little bit about yourself. Besides being the co-chair there, what do you write? I'm assuming you write horror.
Yeah. I'm a versatile writer all across the board. It's kind of, I don't know if you guys find it annoying. Whenever somebody asks what I do and I say writer, they immediately are like, well, what do you write? And it's, for me, like, I am a pro writer. So if you pay me, I will write. So I've done screenplays and short stories and blogs and ghostwriting and articles and everything under novels. And I'm finally breaking that this year. I have 7 novels coming out, 4 this month and 3 in October.
Holy crap. That is a really hard production schedule to manage. Well, how are you doing all that?
Well, I spent last year writing up in the Idaho mountains. And so I got all the rough stuff done there, came down here and worked with my editor, and that's our timetable. We're putting them out 4 this month and then 3 in October.
Damn. We talk a lot about the whole right to market and that fast publishing approach. Is that the business model you're going with right now? Just that really quick, get it out there, make sure your fans have tons of stuff to read?
Yeah. I think I'm taking a page out of the Michael Anderle, But yeah, I want to get as much inventory out there as I can, because I've watched other authors who put out 1 book a year and it just seems to take forever. So I have enough stories to tell and I want to get them out there right away. I want to try to get up to roughly 7 a year for the next 3 years and see what happens.
That's pretty hard to maintain now, especially with the marketing side of it. What are your plans as far as post-production? How are you marketing these books? Are you hoping that they'll piggyback off of each other? Are they a series of books?
Well, some of them, they can break down into pieces. But like, for example, the first 4 that I'm putting out, 2 of them are anthologies. One's a collection of short stories that I wrote, so it's all my backlist. And then the second one, I'm introducing other writers. So I'm the editor and collector, and I do an intro and an outro, but it's all these other authors. Then I've got a memoir that's all about my time in Hollywood and moving up into the mountains. And I've got a standalone novel called Soul Trader about a demon. The 3 that come out in October, I've got 2 of a series. So it's a continuation. So it's part 1, part 2. And then I have a nonfiction book about writing books. And so I'm using everything that I've done up till then as proof, social proof of what I'm talking about. So it's called Perfect is the Enemy of Done. And basically every speaking engagement I've done at writers' organizations and stuff like that, I take all the bullet points and the stories and then use examples of what I've just completed by doing 7 books in 1 year to show them that they can do it.
Wow. Awesome. So now what mountains were you up in again? I didn't quite catch that.
Idaho. I was in California for 12 years working in movies and TV and film projects and stuff like that. And I got really depressed because I had everything on the checklist that I wanted to have in my life, but I wasn't happy. And so that was a real emotional thing for me, where I had to really look at my life. And the way I always dumb it down and try to explain it, because it could be all complicated, and real simply, the things that made me money, I was not artistically interested in doing. And did we just lose somebody?
No, we've got you.
Okay. So the things I could get paid to do, I didn't want to do. The things I wanted to do, I couldn't get made. And then to top it all off, because I've been working in Hollywood, my ego is so big that I wouldn't cash in my degree and go get a regular job, because you can have a regular job anywhere. I'm in Hollywood. So, you know, I had a breakdown where I was just like, I need to figure out what I'm going to do with my life. And that's when I thought, you know what, let's just turn to literary and, you know, get some books out.
Well, you know, and when I first got into writing, is all through high school and grade school and going into college, I wanted to be a creative writer. I wanted to be the next Stephen King, because I just idolized King and Crichton and Kuntz. And my first writing gig was writing for a nonfiction magazine. It was a family issues type magazine, and I wrote for them for a couple of years. And I got to the point where I didn't even want to take an assignment. I mean, I was a young man that was actually getting paid to write.
Yeah.
It was, you know, everyone in my classes, everyone that I was trying to help was like, oh my God, you know, that's amazing. That's exactly what we want. But I was like, I don't want to do it. I do not want to do it. I want to write a book. And I got to the point where I became so frustrated that I put it down and I just started working normal jobs, and I didn't get back to writing for another 10 years. But it was just, I wasn't doing what I wanted to do. I didn't want to write about Hope College's upcoming sports schedule for the year, because I didn't give a shit. You know, I just, my heart wasn't in it. So yeah, I hear you. Now, what were you doing in Hollywood? Were you working on screenplays, or were you side?
Yeah, it ended up being a whole lot of things. But the first thing I did when I moved out there was I sold a screenplay. I wrote a screenplay with two friends who are good people, but mostly just paced and threw out ideas. I was the one who actually did all the work. And so we managed to sell the screenplay. One of the lessons I learned in Hollywood was it's okay to be outside of the box and be crazy. In order to sell the screenplay, we needed a celebrity attached to the screenplay. So I went to a comedy club, because the screenplay was about a black guy who goes into NASCAR. It was called Checkered Flags, a comedy about race. And it was about this black guy who, you know, in NASCAR is predominantly white. And so it was a lot of that as the humor. And so we knew we wanted to attach somebody to it. I took a cardboard sign that said, so I went to the Ontario Improv and I stood out back with a cardboard sign that said, "Hey Eddie," and then when you flipped it around, "Screenplay for you." And I waited for Eddie Griffin to show up, because we knew we couldn't get Chris Rock or Chris Tucker, but Eddie Griffin was like a C-level celebrity. We could probably get him. So because I was dumb enough, I mean, I just got out of college, I was like, yeah, I'm just going to go try this. And when his limo showed up and he got out with a whole big entourage, he came walking by and I held the sign, "Hey, Eddie." And he looked at me, and then I flipped it around and he walked over and said, "What do you got?" And so we ended up getting his publicist information and attaching him to the screenplay, and we were able to sell it. And that's the kind of story that people would be like, you know, if you told them that just as an idea, I'm going to go stand with a sign, they'd be like, "You're crazy." But my whole career was like that. I would come up with ideas that people would say, "Don't ever do that." And then I would do it and sell a TV show to the Country Music Channel, you know, that type of thing. So
you gotta have some balls, that's for sure. You gotta be able to do something off the wall.
See, I'm gonna have to connect with you after this on email, so I can ask you some ridiculous ideas that I could try. What dumb shit can I go do to get noticed?
Do not give him bad ideas.
Oh, I love it. I love it. So now, yeah, you are doing something that I think you said either this year or next year that I actually would like to do as well. Sorry, I've got a cat playing with a plastic bag over here to the side of me. And
wait, is it interpretive dance? Is that what it is, Jason? Are you also going into interpretive dance?
All right, I wasn't going to get into that this episode. Next time. No, I am. I'm going to be doing an anthology, but it's all my own stuff. Right. And a lot of people do big group anthologies with, you know, a dozen or 2 dozen authors in there, but this is going to be all old short stories of mine and new short stories, and I don't have any idea how to approach the publishing or marketing on this, because the stories are kind of all the frick over the place. I mean, they're mostly I write horror and thrillers, so it's all spooky, scary stuff. But I don't have any idea what direction to go with it. Whether I should just go indie or whether I should look into a publisher for it, because it seems I'm not seeing a lot of people very interested in these kind of collections. What do you think, though?
Well, do you have any like introduction from somebody with some notoriety, or like, you know, celebrity blurbs, anything like that? Because that helps. Anything I've done traditional, I usually get like some celebrity to do a little intro to the book, or, you know, some blurbs. And when I send it, they're like, ooh, so-and-so likes it. And that kind of opens the door for me.
Well, and you know, and it's really, it's all in this has been my passion project on the side, because I'm supposed to be writing thriller novels for my publisher, and I'm like, yeah, but I really want to do this too. So I really haven't reached out to anyone or looked into anything, but I think that's probably a good idea. I've just got to figure out who I can get to read it that'd be willing to do some kind of forward or a blurb for me. But
don't be afraid to reach out, because
yeah.
If they say no, you're in the same spot you're in right now. I have some friends who are pretty high up who are willing to do blurbs. I have other friends who won't read the work, but will attach their name to a blurb I write for them.
No
I have
way.
some people who say that they don't want to if it's certain things. There's all kinds. And, you know, I mean, I have Clive Barker and Lloyd Kaufman and, you know, Charles Band from Full Moon, and, you know, actors and Emmy winners and all kinds of people that just because I approached them, you know, they did it. So
that's fantastic. Like I said, I'm going to have to connect with you, because I've got all sorts of questions on how to go about kind of logistically pulling the strings on this. I'll tell you what, though, if I could ever find Clive Barker, I would just kind of fall down on his doorstep and kneel before him, though, because that dude
he's a great guy. Yeah,
he's pretty awesome.
You got to get a celebrity to endorse your book or hold your book at least.
Well, that's what those cons are great for. You know, you run into all kinds of them just walking the floor, and they'll hold your stuff, and you can take a picture, or you can sign it to them and give it to them. That's a great, go to Comic-Cons, go to events. And what Michael Rooker stopped by Katie's.
I was just going to say that. Did you guys
What a cool coincidence.
So, yeah, all right. So you guys know, well, anybody who's been following Spilling Ink knows that David, our wayward co-host, who we have been trying to rope back into doing more episodes. He says he will be doing more episodes. He's actually Michael Rooker's son-in-law.
Huh.
So when we went to Comic-Con last year, David was with us at the booth. And we got to booth share with him, and he got to show his books, and it was a fun weekend. But this year he wasn't able to make it, and we were so sad about that. I kept telling him, is there any way that you can come down? We want you to be at the booth with us. And he said no. And I said, but your father-in-law is going to be there. Michael Rooker is going to be there, and he's awesome. And so he said, well, you know, he's just going to be upstairs. Go say hi if you get the chance. And I wanted to. I really, really wanted to get upstairs. But, you know, if you've worked a convention before, you know how unbelievably busy it is. I mean, it's nonstop sales. You're pretty much on the whole time the convention's going on. So you can't really leave the booth. Now, I did go up and I did see that for a little bit, you know, Michael Rooker had some windows that he wasn't busy, but man, they really book him solid. He was nonstop doing something. So I figured it's just not going to happen. So I sent a message to David and I was like, look, we're probably not going to be able to see each other. Just tell him that I wanted to say congratulations. He did a great job in Guardians. I absolutely loved his character, you know, because artists do appreciate being told what they've done is good. You as book authors know this. And, you know, actors, artists, everybody appreciates being told how good they are. So I wanted to be able to say that. We just didn't have time. And then he sends me a message. He's like, well, tell me your booth number and we'll see if he can drop by. And sure enough, Saturday, it was late in the afternoon, as I'm in the middle of talking to a customer, Jenna's like, oh my God, Katie, look who's here. And I'm like, holding the book, trying to sell it. I'm like, here, you read this book. I'm going over here. Because there he was. And it
so
was like,
he sought your
he
booth
took time.
out.
What's that?
He sought your booth out.
Yeah, he found our booth downstairs and he was mobbed. Poor guy. He had so many people around him, but he took the time to come down to our booth to say hi. I mean, that by itself is amazing.
Yeah,
And
you know, and my wife and I were talking about Michael and about him coming to say hi, and you know, I kind of have some expectations of him, and it may sound unreasonable, but I feel like if I met Mike and he wasn't either really rude and violent, like in The Walking Dead, or totally blue, I feel like it wouldn't be right for me. I'm like, dude, I need you to be a giant asshole for me, okay? So I feel like I can really connect with your character.
And he says, I'm not really Henry, the portrait of a serial killer.
You know what? I tell you what, he was really cool. It was funny because he's like, do y'all have a book that I can hold? He even said that. And as he's holding it up, he's like, look, people are going to think I can read. He was just so much fun.
That's awesome.
And well, it's funny Spilling Ink kind of started at the same convention that we met David at and Michael Rooker at. He had done the walking through the aisles thing at the first Wizard World I went to. And my daughter had pulled him in because at that point she was a little bit younger and she was trained. Anybody walks by the booth, you give them a bookmark. And she, you know, he walked by the booth and she's like, here, do you want a bookmark? Not even knowing who he was at the time. She didn't even make the connection. And he, you know, graciously, he took the bookmark from her and he stopped, grabbed our phones and took pictures. And she's like, who was that? I'm like, that was Michael Rooker. And her jaw just dropped. And that was the same time we met David because he was also boothing at the convention. We didn't know at the time that they were related. And we had got to talking. We became friends. And we started, you know, bullshitting about maybe creating Spilling Ink together. So it was kind of just serendipitous that it all happened at the same time.
How long has this been going on, Spilling Ink?
We're going on what, 2.5 years now that we've been doing it?
Yeah, right around there. Yeah, and you know, back to the convention, Katie, you know, you were just talking about the workload there and how busy it is and how you've got to be selling all the time. And I just want you to know that next year when I'm out there, I'm not going to be doing that. I mean, I am going to actually leave you and the other workers in the nest to do all the hard work. And I'm going to go upstairs and drool at all the celebrities I've been wanting to meet for years and years. But I expect you to sell the books for me.
Now, I will share this little bit of information with you. See, there's our picture just so you guys can see it.
Aw, that's awesome.
We were so happy. Look at those cheesy grins, super cheesy grins. I will let you know that Jacob, poor Jacob, he went out to get a celebrity autograph and came back minutes after Michael Rooker had showed up at our booth. He was very sad that he missed that. So I will warn you now that if you were not there, you never know what you're going to miss.
Hey, wait a second. Where'd Tim go?
We
Tim,
lost.
Come back.
We scared off our interviewee.
Exactly what she warned me about, that my phone would get low battery, that I didn't think would happen.
Never fails.
Well,
but it is a workload. I mean, you know, you're there and you have to be on. You know, essentially, you're the celebrity at that point when you're behind the booth. You are showing off what you've worked on. You are talking people up about liking the same genres you like and how you represent the genre with your work. And you really do need to be on. There's no better word for it. You have to be right there, ready to talk, ready to answer questions, smiles, everything, no matter how bad or hungover you might feel.
Yes, but I would also highly suggest that you be authentic. Because in my experience, I've been doing cons for, 10 years. You end up flushing out the people who are just fake smiles and, I'm here to network, right? Isn't that what it's all about? Hey, what do you do? And you just, at a certain point, you just check out and you're like, get the hell away from me. So I got
a story about that too.
But connect on an authentic level, I write horror. If somebody does a whole bunch of little kids' My Little Pony stuff, I'm not going to act like I'm the biggest fan of her work because it's not my thing, So, I think authenticity is really important when you're making those connections.
Oh, absolutely. And unfortunately for me, being at a convention like that, I'm a Doctor Who fan. I end up getting into hour-long conversations with other Whovians when I should be selling books, because that's just how it is. Now, speaking of being authentic, so I talked to you guys before we hit record. I'm not going to tell the public about my little snafu, but during Drinks with Authors at Phoenix Comic-Con, there was an author, and I will not name names, who I had told my group mates about, that he is very anti-indie. At Drinks with Authors, he walked up to us and he was full schmooze mode. Hi, how you doing? What you write? What you blah blah. I mean, just full schmooze mode. And when he walked away, I was like, guys, that's not the real him. I can tell you right now. I was on panels with him last year. He is not this person that you just saw. And the very next day, as we were doing our thing, we were at our booth, we were selling books. He walked by. One of the guys that's at the booth, Jacob, was like, oh my God, hey, we saw you yesterday, as he was walking by. And this author looked at our booth, looked at us, and walked by. Like, damn you, indie authors. And I had said, he's not a friend of indies. He is not. He's 100% traditional or nothing. And that was like proof positive of it. And they didn't believe me until they saw that. And I will patronize his books because of that, regardless of what he writes. It's like, you know what? You can be respectful of all artists. You don't have to be like, well, if you're not vetted by the big five, you're not worth my time. Especially when a night before that, you were all about marketing and networking and all that with us.
Well, and go ahead, Tim. Well, wait, do I have an echo again? What's happening?
Uh-oh.
All right, I'm going to mute myself so I can get rid of this echo. While I'm muted, Tim, you go ahead.
All right, great. Yeah, let's talk about artist buttholes, because there certainly are a bunch of buttholes out there that you're not prepared for. When I got into the publishing world, it was mostly traditional. It was buyouts, so I would sell short stories, and then there's an event where I went to Scare LA. And I had a whole stack of books for an anthology that I was in. And the publisher asked me to sell them on our behalf. And I sold whatever it was, like 70 copies of a book at a convention next to people who couldn't sell 2 copies of their book. And I thought, stupid me, I thought they would be interested in finding out what I do, how I talk, why I'm able to sell so much. But it was the exact opposite. They shat all over me. And at the next group meeting, they all said that we shouldn't do, like as a collective group, that we shouldn't do Scare LA anymore because it's not a good event for authors, because authors don't sell books. And it was just, yes, authors can sell books. If you know how to sell, you can sell your books. But some people just want to scapegoat and want to be able to point. And, I must be whatever the hell, doing something underhanded and sneaky, yeah, it's called smile and talk to people. It's called strike up a conversation. Don't sit there like a Poindexter hoping they like your cover. Actually engage people. I would say things a little ballsy to them like, you look like you would love this book, and let me tell you why. And it would sell. But still, for some damn reason, they thought I was the bad guy. And anyway, so yeah, I mean, there's going to be buttholes. When before I decided to do full-length novels, when I was doing short stories and ghostwriting and magazines and screenplays, an author offered me a 3-book deal with her traditional publishing house. And I was nervous and scared and wasn't quite prepared for it. And ultimately, I ended up turning down the offer because she gave me a lot of shit. Check this out. See if either of you understand this. She gave me shit about having celebrity quotes for the books. She felt like that was something that she should handle. She should approach them. So instead of looking at, here's a quote from Kevin Smith saying what a great author I am and a great book this is. That would
be so cool.
That upset her. And she felt like somehow I was undermining the company. Like, she honestly thought I was approaching these people using her publishing house as the lead-in and in order to get it somehow. But that makes no sense, because then otherwise, why wouldn't she do it? She couldn't do it. I did do it. And because of that, she got mad at me, and we ended up parting ways.
So, so she was pissed because you did the hard work of getting some notable names to endorse your work.
Yeah, I dared to do that. Yes.
Well, in the words of James Franco, haters gonna hate and ain'ters gonna ain't. I think that was him, maybe. I don't know. I just watched the interview the other day. God, I love that movie. Yes. Well, I'll tell you what. Whether they're authors or actors or radio personalities, I don't know. They're someone's actual personality. When I find out when I hear about it on the news or the radio or whatever, it definitely affects whether or not I'm going to watch their movie or read their book. Maybe it shouldn't. Maybe it should be all about the writing or all about the acting or whatever else. But when I hear someone went off on a tirade, a racist tirade about somebody or something, I'm like, yeah, you know, maybe I don't want to be India anymore. Even if I was a big fan, even if I loved the new Batman series, and I hear that you're a total asshole to your crew, maybe I don't want to watch you anymore. And I don't know. It's just me. I really value kind people. I really value people that aren't a-holes to other people. And I think that needs to be valued a little bit more maybe in our society.
We talked so much about that at Phoenix this weekend, about, specifically because Michael Rooker had taken that time to stop at our booth, and he didn't have to. But for the people, especially the celebrities who are, way, way up here in the upper echelons, they know that just their mere presence is going to make your day. And for them to take just a moment of their time and give that to you, that means a lot. And that says a lot about their character. So when you find, somebody, an artist, an actor, whoever, who is willing to do that, you want to support them even more because they're a good person and because they're the kind of person that you would want to be like.
Yeah. Yeah, I hear you. Now, speaking of people that we would all want to be like, Katie, you were talking about Han Solo earlier.
So, yeah, I've seen that movie now twice.
Wow.
Many days. Yes, so because I have to have a babysitter for my littles, what I ended up doing is I went one day with my oldest daughter so that my husband would watch the little kids because they won't sit through the movie. And then I had to go the next day with my husband because he was butthurt that he didn't get to see it. And he won't go to a movie alone. So I saw the movie twice in as many days. And I thought, for all the hatred that's being spread around the internet right now about that movie, and I won't give spoilers out for anybody who hasn't seen it, I thought it was a good movie. And from an author's standpoint, I thought it was well paced. I thought the action sequences were well done. I didn't feel like there had any saggy middle moments, any slow, boring moments. The minute you felt like, this is starting to get a little slow, they would pick that pace right back up. So I enjoyed the movie from that standpoint. I don't understand what all the hatred's about, but I see where it's affecting Disney as a brand and Star Wars as a brand because they own this. And it does kind of tie into writing in general. So I'm not going completely off in left field about this, but it's the same thing when you write a book series. Your release date, the money you put into it, you have to be able to make that up. The advertising, any bad press can affect you. So what are your thoughts? Have you guys seen the movie and have you heard the bad press surrounding it? Let's start from that point.
I haven't.
Go ahead.
I have not seen the movie, so I can't give any opinion on it, although I have heard a couple people say they really enjoyed it despite the bad press.
I haven't seen any of the Star Wars stuff since Rogue One. I didn't see The Last Jedi, and a lot of this, to go with you talking about negative publicity, that's part of why I haven't been watching, because I had been a fan of the original three, and I think that Empire is a great movie and really stands alone. I love it. I love it so much. But yeah, I haven't seen it. I haven't seen any of the Star Wars stuff. Did not see Rogue One, didn't see The Last Jedi, didn't see this Solo, and it's almost because I don't want to hurt my memories that I liked it. I liked it as a child, and I want to still like it. So I don't want them to keep ruining it, you know? So I get it that they got to keep cashing in and making more money, but you know, I'm a traditionalist with the old timey stuff. I mean, you know, they forced that death of Luke. I mean, you know, at this point, I think everybody knows, but they forced it. The actor didn't want it. He said in interviews he didn't want it. He famously said on the red carpet, "Yeah, give the fans what they want. Kill Luke." You know, that's not what nobody was asking for that. And then they leave Leia alive, the woman who died in real life. So, they're thinking ahead. So, anyway, I just, that's how.
No, and that's an excellent point, because here's the thing. Star Wars is the original fandom. If you think about it, most of us today, we all remember Star Wars from way, way back. Marvel, yes, it was a comic book fandom. It's only recently picked up into a major motion picture fandom. Yes, they celebrated 10 years, but they weren't a major fandom until probably the last few years. Whereas Star Wars goes all the way back to the very beginning. We're talking back into the 80s, where it was an original fandom. And you have to pay tribute to that fandom. You have to give people what they expect, what they want, or they will turn on you. And for Star Wars fans to be turning on the fandom as hard as they are, that really says something. And I think it's really hurting that film, because it wasn't a bad film, but there's a huge boycott going on right now because of the treatment in The Last Jedi, because of people not really appreciating what they did in Rogue One. They're not paying service to the fans, so the fans are turning on them. And unfortunately, for all the actors that are playing parts in these newer movies, they're not getting the credit for the good jobs they're doing because people don't want to see them.
You know, I like the original movies. I am of the last few Star Wars releases, I think Rogue One is probably my favorite. I thought that it was a really cool story. It tied right in with the originals, and there was a lot of emotions in it. There's tons of great action, and it was a really emotional, dramatic ending. And I thought that was really cool. The Force Awakens and then The Last Jedi, I went and saw them both in the theater. I'll end up buying them both here. I'll end up buying all of them that come out because I'm a Star Wars fan, but I didn't love them like I love the originals. And maybe it's because I've got my heart set on the originals. I don't know. Maybe I'm a little prejudiced that way, but I don't know. They just don't seem to have as cool a story anymore as they used to.
See, and that's the thing. I think they have to pay service to the fans. And this kind of ties into the book topic as well. And when you're writing a series, you write what your readers want. You reach out to your readers, you stay close to your readers, and you find out what it is about the characters that they like, what they want to know more of. And as indies, we're able to do that. We're a lot closer to our readers than, say, somebody who's with Big Five, who are kind of being dictated to by what their publisher is demanding. If you want to keep your fans happy, you have to write things that your fans want, and you have to be close with them, and you have to ask them, what is it that you're looking for? What elements are making you happy about the story? What do you want to see in future installments? And if you do that, you keep your fan base happy, you keep your fan base close, and you build from that. You actually create that rabid fan base that you want.
Yeah, I did the Idaho Writers Guild about a month ago, and there was a bunch of different speakers there. One, her name is Judy Thomas, and she is a big romance writing. Am I loud enough? Can you hear me?
Yeah. You could be a little bit louder.
Okay. Let's see if maybe that helps with the speaker. Anyway, so Judy Thomas, she's a romance writer. She's been awarded Romance Writer of the Year 3 times. She did a big talk about how when you write romance, usually it's like, really well-built, strong, muscular men who save a woman from blah, blah, blah. She doesn't subscribe to that. Her books, she has like tubby janitors, or this one guy who's he works at a funeral home. He's the guy who takes care of the dead bodies, and he's a chubby guy, and he's quirky, and he's goofy. And she says she gets more letters, fan mail for him than for anybody else, and that her publishers kind of fought her on it and said that she shouldn't use him as the leading man because he's not a traditional leading man, and blah blah blah. And now the series has, I don't know, whatever, 7 books, and it's a big hit, but it's because she stuck with what she felt like the readers would want and didn't listen to the other big guys. The big guys are not very supportive. A lot of my friends who work with the big publishers have told me stories every time. They're never supportive. It's like they always think what you're writing is going to be next to crap. So they'll put something out and they're like, well, don't expect it to be a big hit. And then when it is a big hit, they don't say, wow, we can't wait for your next big hit. They say, well, you've peaked and I want you to prepare for the next one won't do as good. That's what they do.
What does my shirt say right there? Hold on. Can you see that?
Yes.
We actually picked up shirts for everybody at the booth that says this is Boo Sheet, so we could all be twins.
I have a question for you two, since you're both writers that have been doing this for a long time. Katie, you probably 20 or 30 years longer than most of us. I know. Okay, so we're writing this thriller or this piece of horror, so there's lots of action, lots of gore and crazy shit going on, but we've also got to have a little bit of drama in here too. We've got to have a little normalcy. How do we get through the less intense parts without the readers dropping off? How do we keep that? Because you were talking about pacing with Solo. So how do you keep that pacing high even when we're not in high intensity parts of the books?
Well, it's creating dramatic beats, really. I mean, when I say pacing is slowing down, I don't necessarily mean there always has to be a fight or there always has to be some kind of life or death situation. I can talk, sorry. But something that really makes a reader invested in what's going on. Now, with Solo, they literally did keep it life or death situations. There was always something going on. There wasn't just one thing that they were after. I mean, they were boom, boom, boom. Every few minutes, it seemed like they were after something or something was failing. It wasn't a slow-paced movie by any means. But in story writing, sometimes it's, the main characters. If you have a love interest, will they, won't they, or a conflict between them. If it's an action or a thriller, something new that hasn't been discovered yet. Or if it's a mystery, maybe there's a death of a secondary character that's been discovered or a new clue, something that keeps it going.
What do you think, Tim? You told me you've written a little bit of everything. You're a professional writer. You've kind of done a little bit of everything. Are there particular genres, or what do you think keeps readers most interested? What do you do to keep your readers interested from scene to scene? That seems to really work for you.
Well, we're gonna find out in June with the 4 books, because to be honest, to be honest, the way I write and the things I've sold, I didn't have to keep the reader interested. If I write a magazine article, I get paid, I give it to them. I don't care if anybody reads it. If I get paid to do a screenplay, I turn it in. The movie never gets made. So a lot of the things that I've done, short stories, I write the short story for the collection, he pays me for it, and then whatever happens, happens. So a lot of my stuff, I have not had to think about that. Now that I'm putting out these books and starting up my own publishing house, I will be responsible for the first time to really see, what that's going to be like. So it's new, it's uncharted for me. So we'll find out. I would like to think that, I'm more of a, I guess there's a division between plotters and character driven, where you get into the person and it's all about what they're thinking and what they're doing and why they do it, versus, they steal a car and they go here and they had that and then his wife was kidnapped. And so it's characters versus plot. And I'm trying to find my voice, and I hope that I do for the full length novels, because we'll see, but I'm trying to fluctuate back and forth between the two, and we'll see what happens. I'm not gonna try to pretend like I know. I don't. That's out of my comfort zone, and I'll be just as interested as anybody else.
Okay.
Well, your voice is you as a writer, and just like with plotters versus pantsers, there's no you have to be one or the other. You can be somewhere in between. It's your voice has to shine through and how you write and how that resonates with the readers. So I would never say box yourself into one or the other. You have to write what you feel is correct for you as a writer, but it's what your readers are going to resonate with, and being close to them and interacting with them and finding out what they enjoy from your stories and working from there. That's what keeps your reader fan base growing and staying close to you, so that when the next book comes out, they're looking for that.
Well, what's going to be interesting with Tim, though, is that his projects are, I mean, they're paid projects that he's been hired in to do. So similar to me writing nonfiction magazine articles, that wasn't something I was invested in. It wasn't my own voice. It was the voice that Grand Rapids Business Journal needs for their publication. And I think that that's probably similar to what he's done. So it'll be interesting to see what your real voice is when these come out. Because with me, I am trying so much harder to make my books have a more character-driven feel. But at the same time, I know that when I read a book, I like plot-driven books. And that makes me, I know that makes me like bad. Like I'm supposed to be ashamed to say that because I love action thrillers, and people, it seems like a lot of people right now are kind of down on the action thriller and up with the more literary stuff because they have more meat to them. But I really like stuff that has a fast pace. But at the same time, I want to know the characters as well. If I don't care about the characters, I don't really give a shit about everything they've done. So,
but that's that shade of gray.
I'm trying to prepare. Go ahead. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say I'm trying to prepare them ahead of time. So, like for example, Shock Value. One of my standalone books that comes out in June is because I know ahead of time that it's very weird and vulgar and like over the top and wild and has like demons and sex, and I'm purposely doing a lot of advertising about it being a fever dream of, so just trying to comparing it to Naked Lunch, and so that when people get into it, they'll know that it's not going to be a plot driven piece of literature. It's going to be trash, and it's like enjoyably trash. So if you want, demons and hell and angels and fucking and all kinds of, like, that's what you're going to get. You're going to get a giant praying mantis eating kids at Disneyland. That happens in the book. So, so all I can do is tell them ahead of time that that's what it's going to be. And if that's what you want to read, go for it. But I don't want anyone to be able to come up to me and say, this is garbage, because I'll be the first one to be like, yep.
We've got one of our viewers just said, hey, you know what? There's an audience for everything.
There really is. And you know what? I think that finding the right audience for you is really important. I don't know if I found it yet. I get so many different weird emails from people that I love your scary ghost stories, or I really love Pathosis, which is more of a apocalyptic kind of thing. And I'm like, man, I really don't know what the hell direction people really want me to go in. My publisher wants thrillers. They want the big action thrillers. They want the, the end of the world kind of plots. And so that's what I've got to write. But it's like I get so much mixed reviews from the fans. So it'll be interesting. And
don't write to market. Write what you want. I always really apply to that art for art's sake. That's a big thing for me. If you write something that somebody doesn't like, you know what? It wasn't for them.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the thing. As writers, our worst book that we think is the worst could be somebody's favorite. It's art. At some point, we just walk away, and it's for somebody else. And if they don't like it, it wasn't for them. But it might be for somebody else.
But there's always the other side of it, too. And I bring it back to this, and this goes back to the solo argument of it not meeting box office expectations. the money that you put into your book, especially if you're an indie author and you are 100% financially responsible for this book, the money you put into your book, you have to make back. Otherwise, it's not considered a success. And the same thing goes for like we were talking about Solo. Solo didn't meet box office expectations for any number of reasons out there, whether it was Star Wars fatigue, whether it was the bad press that was surrounding it, whether it was the lackluster engagement with the audience, people not wanting to know about Solo as a character, whatever it was, it didn't meet box office expectations. I think the estimate was 500,000 since they changed directors for that movie total. And it's not even halfway there yet. When you are an indie author and you put all of the money into a book, yes, it's art, but you do have to at least make up whatever amount of money that was. So if you spent $500 to produce your book and you don't make that $500 up, you don't have that money to throw back out at other books.
Oh, wait. So that's not entirely true here, because not all indie authors are writing to sell books. There are some authors out there that are writing just because they've had this dream their whole life of, I want to write a book, and it doesn't matter if it sells. And maybe they work a day job and they've got their 40 hours a week, and they don't care that they've spent the X amount of money. They wrote their book. Right.
Because like Katie said, about it being a success. And then she directly talked about a number like $500 being success. That's not how I consider success. That's not how I rate success. With these books I'm putting out, my success is that you can read them. That's it. And I think I'm doing that to protect my ego. I'm not doing this as some kind of great Gandhi moment. I'm just saying that if I'm spending, because my editor, I think I'm up to like $3,500 to my editor for 7 books. And, and then I have to buy ISBNs and I have to pay for the designer to do the covers and all this kind of stuff. If I was keeping a tally and I said I needed to make this much or I'm a failure, nope, that's not the way I think. If my mom can go and buy the book, I'm a success.
Well, see, and I like that. Well, it's two sides of the same coin, Katie. I mean, do you remember the very first time I was on Spilling Ink? I had written The Cold Room, and I'll tell you what, the Cold Room actually did pretty well. I mean, it was a debut novel. There's probably all sorts of fucking problems with it, but people for whatever reason loved it and they bought it. And I was like, oh, that's great, but my initial intent was just to write that book and to publish it. I wanted some people to read it, and that was going to make me feel good enough. Now that it's 5 or 6 years into the game, I look at these books and I'm like, well, yeah, I've got to hit these figures and I've got to do this and that. And you know what? It's not nearly as much fun.
Well, and if we're not careful, we're going to run into the same spots that I see all the people in Hollywood running into, where, a comedian says, success for me would be to get on a late night show. And then they get on the late night show. Success for me would be a reoccurring character on a TV show. Then success for me would have my own TV show. Oh, I need enough episodes to go into syndication. I've never had a movie. I only had one movie. Pretty soon we have this carrot that we never get to. So for me to stay, I like money. Listen, I like money. I like paying for my bills, and I like, buying things for my house, hookers and blow. I like money. But what I'm saying is, when I was in Hollywood, I could get $20,000 to write an action vehicle short story for a guy who wants to show that he can be an action star, and nothing would ever happen with that screenplay. So are you saying, Katie, that would be a success if somebody said, I'll give you $20,000 to write something nobody will ever see? Because after 12 years of it, I didn't feel like that was a success anymore.
It's a balancing act. Of course it is. There's a balance between art and between your livelihood. And as a livelihood, yes, you do have to pay bills. So if you're constantly throwing money into a book or a book series or whatever that's not making its money back, eventually you're going to run out of money. So if you're at least making your money back, that's what I consider the mark of success. You're not losing money on your art. You're able to sustain it so that you can make more art. I'm not saying you have to be greedy and a millionaire. I'm saying this so that you can continue to produce your art without worry of not being able to afford to produce that art.
Well, in my heart is with Tim. My head is with Katie, because I know damn well that I've got to pay for the stupid house that I'm in. I've got to pay for the motorcycle. I don't know how I'm going to do that some months, but at the same time, it sucks having to worry about money when I'm making words on the computer, because I'd rather worry about loving the words and making somebody else love them. So it is.
It's a fine balancing act.
And let me just,
you know, you have to toe the line between both sides.
Well, I'm not all in on one over the other. I'm telling you, as far as my books are concerned, that to me is my artistic outlet. But I made $6,000 on Wednesday by dealing with 2 writer clients for some other writing related work I do. So I still have ways that I make money in writing, but for these books, I can't put a price tag on them because I feel like it'll diminish that purpose. What I'm doing with those books is not trying to become a millionaire. You know, if they make money, great, but I'm really just looking at it as a surprise. Like here's the thing. When I had a couple of day jobs and I worked in sales, I always hit the top of the sales figures. And the secret was, like, I was the guy who was offered the week-long trip to Hawaii and the plaques. And I always said, I don't care, keep it away from me. Because I didn't want to focus on that. I just wanted to have fun. If I was having a good time and I had fun, then I was bringing in the numbers and I was hitting all the bonuses. But the people who were sitting there like, I really want that trip to Hawaii, they're the ones who never hit it because they were sweating too much about it. So that's my attitude when I go into the writing. I just want to have a good time. I just want to have a good time.
Well, I'm in a similar thing. When I go to like a convention, I know I have to make my table fee. Otherwise, I can't afford to continue going to conventions. And since I'm not being invited to these conventions, whatever the table fee is, that's kind of my goal for the weekend. If I can make my table fee, I'm happy. So I want to sell that many books. And, you know, every night after we go and work our asses off to sell books, we're out drinking. We're out having a good celebratory meal. We're shooting the shit. It's all fun and games. We work our asses off, and then we have our fun. So as long as I'm making the money that sustains me the ability to continue doing what I love doing, I consider that a success.
Was Phoenix a success?
For me, yeah. I made pretty much, I sold half of what I brought. I was able to not pull out the credit card at all when we went out and drank every night and had dinner every night. And for me, hey, that's perfect. That's exactly what I want. I was able to have fun. I was able to sell books and kick ass, but I was able to enjoy the company of the people I was with too.
That's good. That's good.
It's that balancing act. You have to have, you know, a little bit of work ethic and a little bit of art. It's got to combine together.
Well, I think you've got to have enough of a hustle that you can pay for your bills, but also have that passion project, or at least have some passion in what you're doing to make that money. Otherwise, it's not going to be genuine, and your readers are going to know that.
Sure. Yeah.
Well, Katie, I'm looking at my list. All right. Something about Dragamore running. I don't know. I can't read my own handwriting. Was there something to do with dragons that we're supposed to talk about? I don't know what the hell this is. Oh, you have a new release, Katie, right?
I do. My beautiful book right here. This one is actually coming out this week. Everybody buy a copy right now. Go out right now.
I think you sold out of that at Phoenix, right?
I did. And what's funny is because I think people like a limited edition or an exclusive edition. A lot of times I would just hand this to people and I'd say, look, this one is not even available until June 5th, but I was able to get my order in early. So I brought it to Phoenix and people were like, oh, wow, I really like this. And you know what? When I go to conventions, I sell the book for a little above cost so that they're getting a deal. I want people, when I meet them in person, I want them to get a good deal from me. I'm also there to sign the book in person, something you can't get anywhere else. And I was also offering my little ID badges that I made, and I don't have any on hand right now. I wish I had one. I made them as promotional giveaways. So I had ID badges for the characters, like character cards, only something you could actually wear. It was kind of cool and unique. So people really loved that. It was a great idea. And they took the books off my hands before I even knew what was going on. So I wish I had brought more books. I wish I'd had a bigger order because that did really well. So once I got back into town, I posted up online. I said, hey, I'm going to do another order. I will have these for release day. Order your books. I don't have the same appeal now as I did in person, which kind of sucks. I wish I'd had more books in Phoenix.
Were you wearing your sexy gladiator outfit in Phoenix?
No, I wore the TARDIS dress this time. Jenna convinced me to wear a dress.
and I've been meaning to ask you, is that Amy Pond that's on the cover of that book?
No.
It's not?
Kind of a resemblance though, huh? Here, let's see if I can do a little zoom in.
Yeah, it looks like Amy Pond to me. That's why I like it.
She looks like a badass in this book. She only wishes she were a badass. Eventually she'll be there.
Oh.
So the team you had at Phoenix, were they all authors, or was it like Team Katie?
It was a joint author collective. So Jenna Elizabeth Johnson, she's been a guest here a couple of times on our show. She originally got the booths. Now, Phoenix has always had a wait list to get booths with them. So she originally had the booth, and every year she would say, who wants to join me? And Alexia used to be the one to join her, but one year she couldn't do it, and I was called in as a fill-in. And I've taken that spot ever since. So this was my third year going to Phoenix with her. We always do 3 to 4 people per booth. We try and keep costs low. The booths are, I think, around like $900 a piece. So they're really expensive to do individually. But when we booth share, it brings the cost down. It allows us to be able to afford to sell our books there and have fun. Like I said, you got to have that balance between, covering your table fees and being able to have fun. So we've gone 3 years in a row. Last year, I was able to get on as a guest as well. So I was able to do panels. This year, I didn't get to. Still working on making those connections. But the people, once you go to a convention, they recognize you. And so every year when you come back and you're at that same spot, they remember you. And we've had people come back and go, okay, so I picked up this book this year. I want to pick up your next one. And they remember. In fact, somebody was asking for David this year. And we're like, sorry, he couldn't make it this year. We'll let him know that you came by. So the more you go, the more he will recognize you. Sometimes the easier it is to create that fan base and, actually interact with your fan base.
Now, Tim, sorry, Katie, I'm kind of going in a different direction here because I keep looking at the poster behind Tim there. Can you tell us a little bit about what the Horror Writers Association does and what you offer? What does the service do for authors?
Sure, I'd be happy to tell you off the top of my head and not reading off of this brochure. The HWA is the world's only organization dedicated to the support of authors of dark literature. And we are a nonprofit organization of writers, other professionals, and readers around the world dedicated to promoting dark literature and the interests of those who write it. HWA was formed in '85. We were founded by Dean Koontz and a bunch of other guys. And basically, aside from offering everything from, what does this show on my banner here? Member support, on writing horror guide, mentor programs, on light, sponsorships, scholarships. Like, we have a hardship fund if writers have a hard time paying their bills. Publishing, writing, newsletters, marketing. And I'll tell you some of the thing we're most known for is the Bram Stoker Awards. Every year, that's the thing that, your Joe Hill and George R.R. Martin and everybody like that. We just honored R.L. Stine last year. And so it's the big deal horror Oscars, basically, for everything writing related. And I mean, it's from dark poetry to screenwriting to everything across the board. I'll tell you what I got out of it was, when I really wanted to cross over into more literature, and I was going to these writer groups where they would have a writing prompt, and they would, everyone bring out a piece of paper, and anyway, a friend of mine who's pretty big in the writing industry told me to get away from those groups immediately and try to associate myself with actual professional writers, the people who are really getting paid to do it. And so that's why I started going to HWA. And I sold some short stories to a collection, and I started getting on panels and being given opportunities to talk. And I got offers. I had a 3-book deal with a traditional press, which is a fun little story. I always tell. I tend to tell when I'm doing public speaking, because it really shows you. It shows you what the industry is truly like. Because on the surface, if you pick up on writing, volume, whatever the hell, it's going to tell you about sending query letters and trying to get an agent and trying to blah, 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 blah. I went to a party and was just talking about my demon book, and a traditional publisher approached me and said, Tim, that sounds like something we'd like to put out. I'd like to publish your book. Here's my card. Please send us the outline. I took that card, put it in my pocket, and because I'm telling you guys, I wasn't comfortable with putting out novels yet, I took the card and I ignored her. I didn't call her. I ignored her. And 3 months later, I was at another event, and she approached me and she asked if she could talk to me. And I said, yeah. And we stepped aside, and she said, Tim, I've given this a lot of thought, and I understand that when I approached you the first time, I offended you by offering you a 1-book deal. So we would like to come back and make it right and offer you a 3-book deal. If you would please consider signing with us. And so I told her, all right, I'll think about it. I'm glad you came to your senses. But between us, I never wrote a query, a synopsis. I didn't want to put out a damn book. But because I was outgoing and had a loud mouth, she approached me. I blew her off. She approached me again. That's how the industry works.
It's not what you know, it's who you know. And that drives us bonkers in this industry.
That's great news for you, Katie, because after your performance at Comic-Con, you're going to have people calling you out of the woodwork. They're going to be like, I heard you were a vicious a-hole at the conference. Let's do something.
I've been getting calls all day about going on this show, and they warned me about being with her.
I'm such an asshole too. I can't believe, that's the thing. I never say anything either. And the one time I was like, you know what? Fuck you. I can't believe this. And I was like, you know what? I have to bow out now. I have to not even ever talk to these people again, because I've made such an ass of myself. There is no way I can ever show my face in this arena again.
Oh, yes. It's funny how people work sometimes. It really is. But wait. I wasn't done with you though, Tim. After we did get sidetracked a little bit by that awesome story. How do you are writers invited to become members of the Horror Writers Association, or how does that work?
You're allowed to sit in on a few meetings without having to join to see if it's a good fit for you. And once you decide that you want to join, there are different levels. So you can be at a professional level, or you could be at somebody who just enjoys reading horror and you want to support it. So there's varying degrees of how involved you are. But you have to show proof. So, for example, I have the professional level. So I showed, when I first got in, I had sold screenplays. So I showed receipts and proof that I sold screenplays for thus and such money, and I'm registered with the Writers Guild and blah, blah, blah. So that's how I got in at that level. And then I just renew at that every year. But so we're very open, and we love supporters, and we love people who are, maybe someone's a librarian who reads horror and they want to have some panels that they're, about 3 years ago, I put together a panel at a North Hollywood library where it was all horror authors, and we just talked about horror, and it was standing room only. We turned people away. It was good times, except for the homeless man who fell asleep. But, you can't be for everybody.
You can't turn those guys away.
No, but I highly recommend the HWA for anybody who's interested. And you can find chapters all over the world. And then, of course, we get together for the Stoker Awards, and dues are very reasonable. Active members pay $69 a year. Supporting members pay $48. And there's tons of benefits. There's the academic. Anyway, It's definitely worth it if you're interested in anything that's spooky, from graphic novels and academics, librarians, editors, publishers. It's a great way to network with people who are really getting it done. So that's why I like it.
So
now, Tim. Oh, sorry.
I was just going to say, as a member, if you're joining as an author, or as an indie author, do you accept indie authors? Is that a professional?
Yes, that was a thing that went back and forth for a little while, and a friend of mine was one of the people who really pushed for it to be accepted. You guys know Michael Brent Collins?
I don't.
He's a really great indie horror author, and he's pretty big time. He's been very successful. Anyway, he pushed for it, and they knocked the wall down years ago. So it's much more accepted, much more appreciated.
Okay. And then once you're involved with this association, you get to chat with guys like you and kind of get advice and things like that then?
More than that, you can sell your work. Remember, some of the anthologies I got into was because I was at a meeting and so said, I'm doing an anthology. And then, who wants to write something like this? And so there you go. You start racking up the $300 and, $300 here, $300 there, pro rates. And you're starting to sell things. And then it's a loss leader also for, I don't know if loss leader is the right word, but it's an introduction of your work to other collections, to other readers. So somebody will pick something up because they recognize Clive Barker, and they don't know who the hell Tim Chizmar is, but they have the book, and if they read the book, there's a pretty good chance they're going to read me, and if they like me, they won't. But if they did, they would look me up, and that's what I do. I pick up collections where I don't know some of the writers, and and then I'll be surprised. That's how I discovered Nancy Holden and Weston Oakes, and those writers are amazing, but I never would have.
Awesome,
isn't he? SEAL Team 666. That's good stuff.
He's awesome.
I never would have picked up his stuff if I hadn't read his. He wrote it was a short story in the Nightbreed collection. So it was taking the characters from Clive Barker's Nightbreed and then adding these fictional short stories around the characters. And his was so batshit crazy, I had to look him up. And then I was like, wow, what else has this guy done? So that's a great way to cross promote as authors.
Did you see Weston on a Stick at Phoenix?
No.
It's a thing they do because he's actually deployed right now. So he wasn't able to make it to Phoenix Comic-Con, which he normally does. So his wife, Yvonne, who's also a writer, she brought Weston on a stick, and they took pictures all over Phoenix Comic-Con. He was.
Yes.
That's great.
Yeah.
I'll tell you two little things that I got writing jobs from just being at HWA. A friend of mine runs Icons of Fright. And because I was in Los Angeles and he wasn't, every time he had an interview with like a Bruce, Mr. Chin from Evil Dead. Bruce who?
Oh, Campbell.
Yeah, Bruce Campbell, Tony Todd, people like that. He would send me to interview them to write the article. And then Fangoria, a friend of mine, I wasn't in Fangoria as a writer. A friend of mine had written for Fangoria, and then we had an idea about something we could do together, and he had the in, so he brought me in, and we co-wrote a magazine article in Fangoria. So these are some of the things, and it's just from being there, just from being an HWA person. And then on the lesser end, that's not all businessy, emotionally, it's lonely sometimes being a writer, and especially of horror, because you think you're going crazy. Why am I writing about demonic babies under the bed? Shoot, why aren't I writing Chicken Soup for the Soul? So it's nice to be around people who get you, and they're like, yeah, Evil Dead babies. I got an Evil Dead potbelly pig. Let's talk.
Yes. Oh shit.
Hey, speaking of writers groups, Tim, are you going to the Henderson Writers Group meeting on Monday?
I am now.
Good. I'm presenting at that one.
Am I? I have 7 seats reserved.
No, it's absolutely important to be connected with other writers because you're, like you just said, you kind of go crazy if you're not, because you need people who live and breathe the same crazy that you do.
Well, from what I understand about what you said about the group, Katie, and it could be really helpful for you, Tim, is usually everyone brings a little notepad or their laptop, and Katie gives out writing prompts.
Oh, no! No.
No, God, no, no. I don't organize shit. All right. They asked me to come talk about the business side of independent publishing, and I can do that because I like we just talked about here. I'm about the numbers. I'm about making sure the things add up so that you can continue living your dream by making sure you don't kill yourself on the budget. And that's my big thing. So yeah, I'll be talking about that, but no, I'm horrible at organizing any kind of writer anything.
Right. You're are you going to bring that nonfiction book about self-publishing?
I will, yes.
Because I told you I wanted to pick up one.
Yeah, and I'll be at Paseo Verde again on Sunday. I'm actually meeting with another one of my formatting clients because I do ebook and print formatting as a side job. But I'm meeting with one of my clients on Sunday at the Paseo Verde Library to talk about their project, and I'll have books with me as well because I always carry books with me.
Do you do it through Vellum?
No, I don't.
She doesn't have a Mac.
I don't have a Mac, and I hate Apple products with a passion. I have an undying hatred for the whole Apple. Sorry, the dirty word. I gotta go take a shower now that I've mentioned Apple.
I'll tell you what. It's easy to hate on Apple until you've learned to use their products, and then you don't really go back.
It's the proprietariness of them. They think they're better than everyone else.
Because they are.
Because they are.
No, I'm the same way as you, Katie. I only use PC, but I think I'm going to get an Apple next because I use an iPhone, so I'm thinking I figured that out.
You shut your mouth right now.
It can't be that hard. But I'm doing my books on Vellum. My editor is doing them on Vellum. Vellum.
La, la, la.
Well, and I've been looking into Vellum, and because I want to take all my 6x9 books and make them all 5x8s, and I'm just dreading the thought of trying to struggle through it in Word again.
For a reasonable price, I could do that for you.
And you know what? I think that I might take you up on that because as much as I know that I could spend the time and the heartache trying to do it myself, I'm not going to. I'm not. I hate that shit. I really do. It's just like doing chores. I mean, I love having clean laundry, but I don't want to do it. I don't. I really don't.
It's not even like you have to go to a laundromat. You have it in your house, sir.
Yeah. Oh, all right. Well, Katie, I think that you better get us rolling out. We're running up on time.
I think we've gone over time. Tim, thank you so much for enduring the crazy that is spilling ink. I think you handled the nut house well.
We have to have him back. I like Tim.
I'll tell you one thing for sure. I was better than your other guest today.
Oh damn. I don't know who that other person was supposed to be, but they didn't show up.
Could we even have
words with their publicist?
We couldn't have done a head on a stick for him.
Speaking of, I was able to get Yvonne Navarro's book while I was there. So happy. That was one of my loot purchases while I was at Phoenix. And she even signed it for me. So, yes, that was one of my favorites. She is awesome, by the way. We got to get her back on the show. She's such a sweetheart. I had so much fun talking with her. Look at that other guest on the side.
Yes.
Better than that one.
And I will not be talking about the horror of my drinking escapade and the way I ruined my chances with a group that will not be named that goes to all the conventions.
You don't need them, Katie. Once you start being a jerk, people are going to come to you.
Maybe that's it. Maybe I should just embrace the asshole within, and that will make me go far in this industry.
It's worked for me.
Yes. I want to be like Tim.
Screw being nice, screw being timid. God damn it, you were going to say my name right, and you will recognize. Where's my crown? Because I was the princess, god damn it. Now
right. And then he turns to the person next to him. She wants to know why we won't work with her.
Oh, yes. All right. Well, everyone, it was great to have you again tonight for another episode of Spilling Ink, the talk show that takes you behind the scenes in tonight, the very, very crazy world of being an author. We're so glad that you joined us tonight. Tim, you were awesome, man. Thank you so much for coming on tonight. Yes.
And you guys out there in the viewing world, make sure you hit that like button. Make sure you hit subscribe, hit the bell icon, and please share with your friends. The more you share, the more we're seen, the more we can bring on new authors for you to love and enjoy. We'll talk to you next week, guys. Bye-bye.
Good night.